Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so in today's video basically is going to mark the start of my champion top list series, and in today's video I'm not going to be ranking the champions. However, this is kind of like a prelude to all of that. Tomorrow I will start uploading basically 2020 champions ranked from worst to best in my personal opinion. And then starting next week onwards, I will start uploading top 5 or top 10 of each class champions, culminating in what I consider top 10 champions in the game overall. I do that more or less twice a year for the class related champions. And obviously I do at end of each year now the champions that have come out during the year ranked up. But before we get to actually ranking the champions, I think this is also very important video because we do have to discuss certain trends, and we can kind of see the champions are being built and being made differently overall. Obviously each champion is quite unique, or at least most of them are quite unique. In 2020 I definitely have noticed though that we have a lot of common themes and common trends that we didn't have. For instance, I believe pretty much every single champion that has been released in 2020 relies on level 2. There's just no way around it. Like previously we used to have champions like Blade or Archangel, for instance, that come out and they have many different ways how they go about their damage. You can go in level 1 rotations, level 3 rotations, level 2 rotations. In Archangel you can skip special attacks altogether. But here if you take a look at it, then Immortal Abomination, he gets his Death Field thingies active with his level 2 or however you call them. Apocalypse, that's how he plays the degeneration and do majority of your like bigger damage. It's like the big special attack. Then we have Airwalker, Cosmic Ghost Rider, definitely big special 2 spammer, same as Dragonman. Pretty much every single champion that has been released this year quite heavily relies on having access to those level 2s. Red Goblin, Red Guardian, all of them basically involve a big level 2. Previously it was present for plenty of champions like Ghost or Corvus or whatever, but then there were plenty of other champions who didn't really rely or need to do that at all, or not at least to as big of an extent. And that's in itself, in my opinion, not a great thing, because one of the more popular things that we have seen in content in Marvel Defense of Champions is more abilities and more nodes that mess with your special attacks. We have like these power struggles, static blasts, burden of mites, and so on and so forth. Basically a ton of different abilities that prevent you, and therefore I think pretty much most of the champions in 2020 also quite suffer from being situational. Champions aren't made as kind of like solid throughout, sturdy if you will. They do demand specific set of circumstances a lot more than they did before, and therefore it's easier to quote-unquote counter them, and they will not work nearly as well in a lot of scenarios than many of all the champions would. And that is definitely another thing. And most important thing overall, I think, champions have kind of gone down a notch. They have been a lot more consistent. They have been far worse, let's call them useless champions. There have been far less Diablos and Ebony Maws, even though we have had the duds of the year like Terex, we have had Mole Man, we have had Nova. But overall, the champions have been consistently alright. At the same time, there isn't a single champion that's absolute must-have. There are a lot of champions that are very, very fun and very, very good, but I don't think there is any kind of like a total powerhouse being released this year. And I know already you guys are going to jump to, how about Cosmic Ghost Rider? Yes, Cosmic Ghost Rider is a very, very cool champion, but he doesn't do anything too special. He doesn't do anything too new. He has a lot of conditions. He relies on having access to buffs. He relies on having access to debuffs. He has relatively alright amount of utility, but he's far from utility machine. He's kind of like, basically this damage, just powerhouse, which is cool, but that makes him a bit more of a luxury and fun to have rather than a must have. If you do not have Cosmic Ghost Rider, but you do have plenty of other decent champions ranked, there basically isn't a single piece of content that comes to mind where he would make your life so much easier. Yes, he's fun. Yes, he's going to be used. Yes, he's good for general questing, and there are some things that he does better than other Cosmic Champions. He doesn't do anything extra. And the same theme goes to most of the champions released this year. I think some of the more unique additions, however, have been Professor X and Apocalypse, where they do effectively tune up an entire class of champions. Like Apocalypse creating Horseman, it has a ton of great synergies, is a great standalone champion himself. But again, as a champion himself, is not really all that demanding. I look at Apocalypse largely as kind of like a luxury item, an item that, well, not item, a champion that you look at. Yes, I definitely want to have him. I definitely want to use him because he's fun and he's well made. But realistically, when you go in a piece of content, it's not the first thing that you're going to grab if you're going to go in blind in a very hard, difficult piece of content. Let me put it like this. If there's going to be a quest where you know it's going to, let's say this boss rush, right? We would have to deal with boss rush. None of the 2020 champions would make it as your immediate team in there. You would bring in Ghost, you'd bring in Quake, you could bring in Corvus, you'd bring in Dr. Doom, you'd bring in whoever, but doubtful that any of 2020 champions would make it out from top of your head as one of the first 5 champions that you want to add in your questing team. Like when you're gonna pop in Act 7, probably not gonna pick any of these guys first. Still gonna be the Quakes, the Ghosts, the A-Guns, the whatever, right? So that is the common trend. I think that overall power level definitely has gone down a bit from the most successful champions from previous years. But again, power, kind of like the bottom part, has gone up because all of these champions, and I'm not trying to be strict, I like them. I do enjoy a lot of those designs, and I think there are plenty of fantastic champions being released this year, and they have become a lot more consistent. Like the top end of 2020 is much, much closer to the bottom end than it was in the previous years. In the previous years, we had Dr. Doom and Ebony Maw. That's a huge discrepancy. And here, as I said, we do have a couple of duds, like the Mole Man, like the Terox, but overall it's relatively thereabouts at good, fun, / alright kind of mark. There are plenty of good champions that people do use and want to use, but ultimately, when you do compete with absolute broken destroyers of the previous years, they don't do so well. However, that being said, obviously we all have our favorites, and I think another point that I want to put out there, the 2020 champions have been absolutely stunning. First and foremost, I think that the graphic design department in Kabam is by far the strongest department there. I think that every year champion animations, special attacks, and just champion looks themselves become so much better, and it's a joy to use these new characters. It's far from the times when 5 champions shared the same heavy attack and same special attack and they hardly did anything. Now we can see absolute exquisite short films on level 3s. I still wish we could skip them, but special attacks, medium attacks, heavy attacks, just champions themselves when you have them on pre-fight screens, they just look so good. So I definitely appreciate that, and they definitely have stepped up their game. In addition to that, I think overall, when it comes to the enjoyment of using champions, they also have stepped up their game. Because even some of the less than great additions, let's say Immortal Hulk or Mole Man, they can still provide you with a fair amount of fun. Same as with Red Goblin. Red Goblin is a very, very fun champion to use. He's not even that bad. He's just not overly great, and he requires dupe, and he requires high sig ability, and he requires a bit of a learning curve. But there is again that big problem that when you create good champions, and there is a total lineup of 100 plus previously released champions, of whom there are like 20 or 30 champions that are absolutely busted and broken. It's good to have this, but you can't expect everybody to kind of like pay too much attention to that, right? It's kind of like if you release these, I don't know, flagship phone and then release a budget version of that later. 2020 effectively, when it comes to the power level, has been a budget version, unfortunately, to Quake, for instance. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. I did not know she's gonna pop up, but, well, it's impossible kind of to compete with Quake in this game, but it just illustrates the point very well. Quake is so much more simple champion, right? Even the ability description, when you check out the abilities, it's significantly less. There's hardly any text really, right? You can see that all of that pretty much fits in here. And then we're gonna have a ton of abilities. Right. Yeah. 2020 champions at launch have been a lot more complex as well. We can't avoid that fact. But I think Kabam overall has done a relatively good job creating complex champions with relatively simple rotations. For instance, we have, let's say, Sorcerer Supreme. She has a wall of text of what she can do, but as soon as you kind of get the basics, it's not difficult to use her. Cosmic Ghost Rider again. Once you start actually using the champion, it's not really the most complex rotation opposing to many of the champions of the past. Same with Apocalypse. Apocalypse, total mountain of the text. Idea is relatively simple. Shoot level 1, shoot level 2, lock them in with level 3, badam, get fort resistant charges, make horsemen. It's a very simple, easy to use rotations with a lot of different kind of like scenarios and niche sets of abilities. So those are, I think, the most important common criteria. So to take it all away, I do think that champions have become more interesting. I do think that champions have become less powerful overall compared to previous years, but that's not necessarily a good thing. I think overall it creates less of these absolutely must-have scenarios. And in 2020, you largely acquired champions just because you wanted them and they looked fun, not because you 100% had to have them to progress in the game. There are no 2020 champion, I believe, where we have a situation like you need Heimdall to beat Mr. Sinister, or you need that champion to beat that, or you need Corvus in order to be able to beat that quest. So I think from that kind of point of view, I do quite enjoy this depowering, let's say, more stable version of the game where every new champion maybe it's very hard to explain at this point, but for me, every new champion that's coming in is fun, is unique, but I definitely don't feel pressured to the point where I absolutely must have any of them, because I know that I'm going to be fine without them. I want to get them to be able to have fun with them, not in order not to be blocked or roadblocked for the next set of quests or whatever. Because I know I can deal with all of the quests that are coming out with the champions that I have. These are the ones that I want to get to have fun. Another thing that there is that I have noticed that all of the champions that have been released in 2020 have been relatively high prestige, but we haven't seen a single champion in 2020 that has kind of hit the prestige ceiling. At the end of last year, we got Dr. Doom and Silver Surfer, and they are still the top prestige powerhouses, and none of the champions that are released this year have really come close. All of them have solid prestige, but prestige champions as a whole have remained exactly the same champions that we used to have before. I think the only exception here is Guardian, who currently is the highest tech prestige champion, but I think that's about it. The highest skill prestige is still Thor Ragnarok. The highest Mystic champion is still Dr. Doom. Cosmic is Silver Surfer, followed by Phoenix. Mutants is like Namor and Sunspot. So yeah, we haven't had any champions that really overtook their classes, maybe I think with the exception of Guardian. But yeah, again, so I'm going to try this again. So I think the champions have overall become less powerful. I do think that they have become more fun. I personally enjoy these trends a bit more because it just plays on more positive feelings about the game, not some jealousy or desperation or sadness that you miss out or you haven't gotten something. And then definitely how to say huge thank you to the hard work of the Kabam's graphic department. I do think they are doing a phenomenal job. Some of the champions that have relatively gimped abilities are even still quite fun to use because of their animations. And yeah, I think that more or less will put it to bed today. And as I said, tomorrow I will start releasing my rank videos where I'm going to start ranking 2020 champions basically from worst to best. We're gonna do that over the course of 3 videos probably, because I do like to talk a lot about them and I don't want to rush through them. And I will also omit from that list the buffs that we have had in 2020, because those are not new champions and I don't think they quite fit the overall narrative that is here. And if I didn't exclude them, then Magneto would just take this spot number 1 probably. Anyways, for real now, that is it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the overall trends of 2020 champions. And yeah, I will catch you guys soon and see ya.